Welcome back to the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast. I'm your host, Steve. Dustin is not with me this week, but I am joined by Adam Mason of the Bearded Tog podcast. Adam, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Adam, I'm super pumped to get to talk to you. I've been listening to your podcast for like the last year or so, and as we were talking like before we started recording, like I just love the way your voice sounds and like the way like everything. You have a really great setup, and I love being able to like see it here. I love like the guitars you have on your back wall and everything. Do you play music?
Yeah, I actually went to school for guitar, went to college for guitar, and have been playing guitar since I was 10 years old. I should play more, but of course, as you know, like passions shift and change and your time commitments and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've played music since I was 10 years old.
So you went to school for guitar specifically, not like for music or.
Yeah, for guitar performance. So I actually ended up getting a full ride scholarship for guitar, for classical guitar performance.
Mhm.
And yeah, I went to a college in Pennsylvania, and yeah, kind of crazy. It definitely like I was a freshman, I was 18 years old and came into the school, and all the other guitar players kind of looked at you like, you were either the shark or something, like, they're sizing you up basically.
Mhm.
But I was just an 18-year-old kid, who was happy to go to college for free. Like it wasn't anything crazy.
That's awesome. It's nice to have somebody on the podcast who's really talented.
Hopefully
Yeah.
we'll find out. I mean,
Yeah.
I do I take pictures for a living now, so who knows, man. But no, it was definitely really cool. And I feel like you know how I learned guitar, both it's a blessing and a curse, because I was trained like by a classical person,
Mhm.
very fundamental, very like I wanted to quit every week. um but like that's how I learn everything now. Like I'm very methodical, and it's very beneficial. And it's like you can never exhaust, like you'll never hit the top of anything skill wise. And so
Mhm.
it's fun to like know that and be like, okay, let's just keep chasing this down and see how far we can go. So
Adam, do you need to tell us, like, were you whiplashed? Is that what I'm hearing? The way that you were taught how to play guitar?
no, it was
Adam, you don't have to say anything, but just raise your hand if you've ever had a guitar
yeah,
thrown at your head, you know?
blink twice. No, no, my first guitar actually had a beehive in it, so I think that would probably be
Whoa.
the first like bad situation. I'd be like, you better play well or the bees are going to get you. No, I'm fine.
Did you find out it had a beehive in it while playing?
No, like we actually got it out of, like, I don't even know. It wasn't even a yard sale or something like that. Like we knew somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody from church, and they were like, yeah, we've got 2 or 3 guitars in our shed. And it wasn't even like a shed with doors on it. It was like a carport, but
Mhm.
pretend they didn't use it for a long time. So they just stored all their junk in there. And so there were 2 acoustic guitars with no strings on them. We took them both home. But the nicest one was the one with the beehive in it. So yeah. Or I don't think any bees are living in there. But yeah, or I guess technically it's like a wasp's nest, because it wasn't like the actual honeycomb looking thing. But yeah. So it's fine. We're good. I've never been stung.
That's awesome. That sentence of I knew somebody who knew somebody from church or whatever
Yeah.
sounded so Midwestern to me.
Oh.
Like as somebody who grew up in the Midwest, like almost everything in my life growing up was my parents know somebody from church or they know somebody who knows somebody from church, and it's like everything was connected. Like the church was our
Mm,
hub of all
yeah,
social interactions.
that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean it's you got to find those like spheres of influence. And my mom was like, hey, this kid wants to play guitar. And luckily, thankfully somebody was like, hey, I don't know if these will be good, but we're thankful that they let us come over and pick through their trash to find a guitar.
So when you graduated from college, did you get started in music right away, or what was the process like that brought you from music to photography?
Yeah, it's kind of I've never wanted to look at it like a one-to-one transition, but honestly, maybe it was at some level, because um like I ended up getting kicked out of college my sophomore year. And kind of lost everything. Like my parents didn't go to school. I wasn't planning on going to school, and then got the scholarship. So I went back or I went, and it, I was a fish out of water anyway, and I didn't really know what to do. And so, um, my last year of school before getting kicked out, I've been working at the local Apple store, slinging the iPhone 3G, as back in the day, 2008. And, just everybody they hired at the time was like specialized in something, which I thought was really cool. And so I worked with a lot of creatives who were graphic
Mhm.
designers, photographers, and especially as a person who knew nothing about that, who was from a small town, like I had never even seen somebody take a photo and then like put it on the computer, like very basic stuff. Um, and so that was really cool. And so I was always asking questions like during work, slow times. And so I was like getting interested in photography, and then I
Mhm.
get kicked out, and I'm kind of like, all right, what do I want to do with my life and myself? And I end up um, applying for an internship to go live overseas, and do kind of humanitarian work in a village in Eastern Europe. And so before that internship, I bought like a very small point and shoot camera. I think it was a Casio or something. Um, and yeah, bought that camera, went to Eastern Europe and lived there. And our main contact there, who we lived with, was a photographer and had like a DSLR, Nikon D3 kind of vibes. Um, and I got to see him take photos of people who had never had their photos taken before, and you got to tell them
Mhm.
that they had value and that they mattered and that they had a purpose, and that they were beautiful. Didn't have a mirror, right? And they didn't have a reference where like most Americans, we wake up every day and check ourselves in the mirror, and that was just really powerful to me. That was super cool. Um, and it was something where like, at least for me, we're getting really personal here.
Mhm.
Uh, Guitar for me, even if I didn't want it to be, was, functionally me on stage. It was people looking at me, whether I was in a band
Yeah.
or for this particular college thing, I was usually playing alone. And they're like, okay, like perform for us, buddy, or whatever it is. Uh, and the camera made it less about me. And I think I was looking for something at that time where I could make it not about me and make it about the relationship between me and whoever's on the other side of the camera. And yeah, fell in love with photography, mostly as a hobby. But again, like as we talked about, I knew how to learn something, and I didn't have any formal training, but I soaked up podcasts like the original Frono's Photo and
Mhm.
Mark Wallace from Adorama TV on my iPod Classic back in the day. Um, and I just soaked all that stuff up. And I was talking to somebody today, and I was like, I knew who all my heroes and competitors were in the wedding world. Like when I first began, and I would like stalk their websites. I knew everybody else's branding points, all that kind of stuff, just to learn. I knew I had to make up for lost time in my mind, especially because I wasn't sure what school was going to look like. Uh,
Yeah.
Lo and behold, I toured with a few bands, both as a photographer for a festival. So that, got me in contact with a bunch of other bands, media, licensing, all that kind of stuff. Really early on, I was 20, 21 years old. I ended up shooting a political tour where I shot about 3,000 photos every day for 100 days straight, um, which was pretty crazy. And we were like on a tour bus, and like I had to really practice getting my workflow down because I had to turn around photos so quickly. Um,
Mhm.
it's kind of like being a press person, which again, I knew nothing about. Like I was new to this, but it was like I just said yes. And so that really helped me a lot. And at the time, I wanted to go back and go back to school, and I wanted to be a guy that like finished things. We're getting really deep here, but I wanted to be a guy that like didn't leave something hanging. I was like, no, I want to
Yeah.
finish, and I want to finish well. Um, even if it's not for anything else, and even if school is no longer free. And so I went back to the same school I got kicked out of after I had served my 1 year, hey, don't come back kind of thing. Um, and switched degrees to digital media and communications. And yeah, 2 years later, graduated, and yeah, was shooting a little bit on the side for a while, different weddings, different gigs, picking up stuff here and there. Really just saying yes and having an opportunity to learn, and then moved to DC after graduated for 2 years, and then went full time as a photographer in 2015, so almost 6 years ago. And now it's like this uncontrollable gorilla running through DC that I'm just along for the ride with. And so, yeah, that's a long answer, but that's where we're at now. Just picture me riding a gorilla. If you listen to this and you only remember one thing, it's Mesa Photography is my gorilla, and I ride it through DC. That's all we're talking about.
I love it. I'm glad it didn't get derailed with like the photographer I met in Eastern Europe. He took my Casio and whiplashed it at my head, and that's how I learned.
No. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. Have you recently watched the movie Whiplash? Is that why that's in your brain right now or something? That's a
I
great
don't
movie
think
though.
I've only seen bits and pieces of it. I've never seen the whole thing.
Oh, it's super good. I love it. It's, for me, I watched that movie, and most people will be like, the teacher is the bad guy in the movie.
Hmm.
But I'm like, nah, man, this kid's a jerk. Like, he should be practicing more. He could be better, you know? But you're supposed to be like, the kid's an artist. Let him be free, which is fine, you know?
So you come down on the side of the guy who doesn't he throw like a chair at the kid at one point or something?
Yeah, I mean, the dude needs, I'm not denying that he needs therapy
Yes.
for his actions, but I wouldn't say he's wrong.
I wouldn't say he's wrong to be upset. I would just say his actions once he is upset maybe could use some improvement.
100%. Yeah, he's totally valid to have the feelings he has and push people for excellence. So, yeah,
It's
just
just
no
hard for
throwing
me
chairs.
because I like J.K. Simmons, and like the reason I didn't finish when I started watching it is like I didn't like seeing him as such an evil person. Like I would just watch Invincible, and he
Okay.
voices like the antagonist in Invincible, and it was
Yeah.
like because it's not his face because it's like a cartoon or whatever. It's like I could get through it, but like
Okay.
even just with the voice, it's still kind of like oh, but that's J.K. Simmons. Like he's a nice guy, right?
Right. His biggest thing I feel like publicly without seeing his movies is like the insurance thing. And so you're like, oh yeah, like okay, like he's into insurance. He's a nice guy. And you're like, but he can play like a really evil person. I like it. Anyway.
Yeah. So you started out kind of it sounds like doing more like music photography and stuff like that while you were touring and everything. What made you want to started with weddings?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I found in a few years is I feel like some photographers who you talk to, they're probably not even listening to this podcast because they're probably like, ugh, weddings, get out of here. There's this like this set of photographers who get weird about weddings. And I think what happened is they had a bad experience on their first one and they said, I'm never doing this again, or they had like a what they would call a bridezilla moment. And I bet $1,000 it's probably the photographer's fault for setting the wrong expectation or not having like a good client experience.
Mhm.
Man, I just got preachy, but I'm gonna bet money it's on them. But nonetheless, they were probably like, "Man, I don't want to do this anymore," and so they don't shoot weddings anymore, right? They're trying the commercial thing, or they're shooting family, or they're documenting, or they work at Guitar Center and they say that they take photos on the side. And that's totally fine. Or they're a creepy guy on Craigslist. That's also an option for people who don't do it. But for me, I loved. I shot my first wedding, $500. Rented a bunch of gear from Borrow Lenses. That was more than $500, but I was like, yeah, spend money to make money, I guess. And hired my girlfriend as a second shooter. We drove like 7 hours there, 7 hours back. And we were good Christians. So we didn't even get a hotel, I think. Yeah, it was a long day. Um, Very
Wow.
long driving day. And yeah, it was intense. Probably like 24-hour day, basically. And that's why we're not together anymore because I make dumb decisions like that. No, 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 no. This is like 12 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, got my first wedding. Friends from school, who I really had only taken like one or two actual portraits of anybody. Um, and they were college students and didn't have a big budget. So it worked out. And I shot it and I like studied all my heroes' work that week and like crammed and was like, okay, what kind of photos do I want to take? And like, I practiced on friends and, I got into like the equivalent of like what all of us know, like the Hampton Inn, one bedroom, and trying to shoot, like getting ready, all that kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, and we just went for it, and I had a blast. And I think part of that is like half my background, is being from a small town, single parent. I didn't see a Best Buy until I went to college. Like
Mhm.
I was just very would say very uncultured, just didn't know much of what was happening in the world. And then the other half is that, like, I'm an extrovert, and man, weddings, there are a lot of people, and it's fun, and people are getting crazy, and so I just had a lot of fun, honestly. And photos let me do that. And I, man, this is gonna be bold. I would probably yell at myself now if I was my own mentee and say, like, you could do better. But my goal was to shoot better than what I was charging. And I think looking at the photos even now, I'm like, these are definitely worth more than $500. Maybe they're worth like $900, or 1100. And so that was my goal for every wedding going forward. And so that first one, though, like, I talked to some of my mentees who are very green, and I'm like, you just need your first one. You need your first win. And then if you get some good photos out of it, even if it's like four, you push those four photos like all the time. And yeah, and then just snowballed from there. So I don't even remember what the original question is, but we're talking about this.
That's great advice. Just get some good photos. Like when I first started shooting photography, because my background's video production, and like that's what I
Okay.
went to
Yeah.
school for. That's what I did when I graduated. And then
Yeah.
Jen, my wife,
Yeah.
started doing photography and kind of dragged me into it. And like the first time I shot with her, she's like, "Look, the last time I hired a second shooter, they got two shots that were usable the whole day. So if you do better
Mm,
than that, that's
mm,
realistically, that's all I'm hoping for out of you." And so like the end of the
yeah.
day, I think she was like, "Yeah, I actually ended up delivering something like 75 of your shots to the client." She's like, "So you're going to be
Oh, that's
second
awesome.
shooting with me from now on forever." But it's like looking back, it's like she there was 75 deliverable shots. I don't know if there were 75 good shots, but there was maybe like one or
Yeah.
two good shots,
Yeah.
and it was like every single time trying to build off of that, like you said, get more good shots every single time, just do a little bit better, and get to the
Exactly.
point where you can deliver more work that is of a higher quality. So no, man, I love that advice to just get
Yeah.
out there,
Totally. I mean, it's
get like your first thing done and get moving on it.
totally. I mean, people get weird about this, and people get weird even about like Gary Vee or something like that. But one of the pieces of
Hmm.
advice that I just liked and resonated with me, and obviously people listening this far have heard part of my story, so maybe that it only resonates with somebody like me. And but he just said, like, don't be romantic about how you make your money. And I I've always thought about that, and I was like, even now, right? Like, you know, in DC, highly competitive photography market, things are going well for us, and they might not always go well, but so far they're going well, and we really like that, and we do our best to steward that. And like, profiting six figures now, kind of predictable rates of return, all this stuff. Like, it feels we're finally at that comfort level. Like, I'm not terrified when leads aren't coming in,
Hmm.
because like we know our math and we know what happens. um but like, photographers will ask me now, they're like, isn't it weird for you to shoot at the same venue 10 times, like, if you get on their list or whatever? Uh, and, you know, I could see how that could be happening. But what I've thought about is, like, my mortgage does not care where the money comes from. You know, like, it does not care what venue, how artsy I was, if I used off-camera flash, if what my white balance was at, if I shoot all primes or zooms. It doesn't care about any of that stuff, man. Like Capital One or whoever my bank is or whatever. Obviously, Capital One doesn't do mortgages, but whoever my bank is, if they come in and they're just like, "Hey, where'd you shoot that wedding? We need your money." Like, nobody is doing that. And so I think, like, just being willing and open to chase it down. Like, I at least for me, I wanted it really bad, and that's my personality. Like, if I am focused on something, I'll just go chase it down. Like,
Hmm.
my wife would probably say, like, my obsession with cryptocurrency in the last like 6 years. Like, people are getting in now, and I'm like, oh, I've been in deep. I remember the pains of 2017, but um, and so stuff like that. Like, I'm just very, I'm all about depth, not about breadth. And so,
Hmm.
long story short, the shooting a free wedding, even shooting multiple free weddings, like, I it's no skin off my back. Like, I seldom, only today did I think about, 200, 300 weddings into this job. Did I think about, like, oh man, should have charged more for that first wedding? No, I'm not thinking that at all. Like, I don't lose sleep over that. I'm like, I'm so thankful that couple took a chance on me. Um, and it's my job to, like, meet or exceed the chance that they gave me. And yeah, I'm super thankful to be here because of that. that first wedding that we drove 7 hours there and 7 hours back for. So
Man, that is crazy. But then I think back to Jen and I's first wedding. She was doing photo, I was doing video for it, and we
yeah,
drove to the it was a Mormon couple, and they got married at the Mormon temple in Nauvoo, Illinois, or
okay,
Missouri. I forget where it is. And it was like a 7 hour drive there and back.
yeah,
And there
yeah.
was like a winter storm, and it was like a giant blizzard that we had to drive through. It was terrible. Those
Yeah,
first
yeah,
weddings, man, they really kill you.
yeah.
I
Well,
can
because
see why so many people.
you have
Wait,
no
what?
boundaries.
Yes.
Because you're like, yeah, I'll shoot whatever. Like I shot and it's kind of, you can have some cool stories, right? So like I shot my first destination wedding was in Maui, but I think I charged like $1,500, like, and that barely covered my travel. And I was only in Maui for 48 hours. So like I left the reception and then got on a plane. And
Hmm.
people were like, "Oh, you shot in Maui. That's so cool. That's so sexy." I'm like, "No, I'm tired." Like I had to fly back from Maui, leave the airport, and then go shoot another wedding. Like it was a blessing and a curse. But small town, again, I'm like, I got to go to Maui. That's pretty cool. Like I don't make it as complicated as other people make it. I'm
Hmm.
very dumb and happy and just grateful. Like I always tell people, like this could stop next year, and I'll be like, that was a really cool ride. I'm really glad we got to do that. Um, like I'm not entitled to anything or any of that stuff. So anyway, but yeah, I've worked with your wife before, and I think
Yeah.
we're working together.
Yeah.
This is the only time we're gonna meet. We won't even get to meet in person this summer, but that's just the way of the COVID recovery goes. But I appreciate it, so I'm excited.
Yeah. For the firefighters conference, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So
Yeah. Jen was bummed she couldn't do that. But, you get pregnant and all of a sudden you
oh,
have to make life changes.
yeah, you have boundaries. Yeah. Is that your first kid or multiple?
It'll be our third kid and
Okay. Yeah, so
final
she's a
kid.
pro.
Third and final.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ending the trilogy, as one might
Yes.
say. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All of our kids are Ian's 10, Nora's 5. And so they're all 5 years apart. And
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
we're just ready to be done with kids, I think, after this.
Wow. Oh,
This one wasn't planned, but we're
okay.
very happy. Very
That's awesome.
happy. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, well, I mean, the unplanned one is obviously, I always think of like very Disney mindset. I'd be like, that one could be destined for greatness. Not the other ones aren't, but that one, the the youngest one, the final one in the trilogy, it's destined for greatness. So no, out of that,
I'm,
that'll be
I'm
cool.
gonna have to tell my middle child that her dream of being a rocket/princess probably isn't gonna come true because the third one's the one who gets the good stuff.
Mm, yeah, your middle one is yeah, probably gonna be Pam on The Office, like
Yeah.
cool
Well, I mean,
receptionist.
I'm a middle child, so I mean,
Oh yeah.
the best thing she could hope for is a podcaster, I think.
Hey, I mean that works. That works. Awesome. I love it so much.
So you're in the DC area. You do weddings, you do conferences and stuff like that. Do you do any political work at all?
Not really much anymore. Well, it's like kind of a weird mix. So my main bread and butter is weddings, and like if I have enough weddings, that's all that matters. And then like, but obviously corporate clients, the right corporate clients, they have enough money to make me look at them and be like, oh, what? Okay, like they have enough money. I say to like uh change my boundaries, right? Like, I don't usually take weddings on Sundays, but if somebody offered me, 25K or something, a larger number, I'd be like, okay, I'll shoot it. So I feel like corporate clients do that all the time. But nonetheless, it's really fun. So do some corporate conferences and usually trade show kind of stuff, keynotes.
Hmm.
People love like kind of the keynote concert vibes. That's something I learned too from shooting concerts, is like how to make epic photos of things that aren't epic, but still like marketable. So it's not, there's like a weird balance. But yeah, I'd shoot some stuff for corporate clients here, where there'd be like some political things happening, or like um, the Patriots, the New England Patriots won
Hmm.
whatever Super Bowl they won. I don't know, five or six. And
Hundreds of them, I think.
yeah, and they came to visit the White House, and so I like got to shoot at the White House and photograph the Patriots being there, which is cool. So political in the sense that like I'm at the White House, but the goal was to get photos for the Patriots or whatever, or something like that. So yeah, kind of a random mix, but I think having a good weddings bottom line too, and the fact that I like it, it helps me be really picky and choosy with the other
Mhm.
stuff, and to only say yes if it's cool or if it works for our goals or our budget or all that kind of stuff.
I like what you mentioned about like when you're shooting conferences and other things, like you have to look for things that like could make an epic portrait while also still like portraying like the conference and stuff. Like when you're shooting weddings, when you're shooting conferences, other things, like what are the sort of things you're on the lookout for that like catch your eye?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody says this, but I realize now because of the internet, photographers I think ruined this, but it's totally fine. I think it's fine. We all say we're looking for good light, and then what I realize is we all think we haven't quantified that at all, so we have very different interpretations of that. But what I would say is that usually looking for flattering light first, or and secondly is like interesting shapes or just patterns of where light is happening. So like I'm a big and I see this because I know this. What's funny is like not photographers would see this, but clients don't care. They're like, "Oh, I love this one photo," and you're like, "I do that photo at every wedding," um,
Mhm.
whatever. But it's like if I find a doorway where there's light coming through, but then like the rest is like a cool pattern, like, oh, that's a recipe for a silhouette in my mind. I'm like, boom, easy peasy. Like, let's make a silhouette, forehead to forehead, nipple to nipple. Let's do this thing. Um, and like very easy, like cool silhouette. And if we're lucky, whatever's around the silhouette looks cool. Sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't, and it's just like a black box. But um, same thing for conferences and stuff like that. Conferences and corporate clients, they always want here's the trick. I'm gonna give this away for free, is like, and I think my comms background helps with this, but when you're shooting corporate stuff, and we'll talk about this for the firefighter thing, is like our job, it's a balance of like we want to take a good photo, like so corporate we can't mess up on. So like weddings, you can like misfocus a little bit and be like, it's still cool. It's artsy, man. Like it's cool. Whereas corporate, like they want every photo, even if it is a bad time, and even if they put you in a room with bad lighting, like you're supposed to be no excuses. And so you should assume that every photo might go on a billboard. So you better be freaking sharp, or whatever. Or like, which I shoot wide open 1.4 all the time, and so it's risky, but that's how I like that look. But anyway, um, yeah. So I think for that, when you're shooting for corporate stuff, clients, even a brand photo shoot, right? That's growing uh, in our industry right now. As people are transitioning to brand photography, it's like our job is no longer about us, but our job is about their goals, whatever the corporate client's goals are. And so I always think like my number one job isn't to impress other photographers. My job is to sell tickets, and I sell tickets by making this event look like a place where people want to be, and so that's why like
Mhm.
you'll have like networking happening, so you get people shaking hands and kissing babies, and I want to make the keynote speaker both look flatteringly good, so I'll always try to aim for like a nice one, just like weddings, like let's take a nice one for mom, you know and then I'm like, okay, let's see if I can do something cool with a cool angle or show the bigness of the room. You want to show like, here's how massive this event is that you might miss, and or something. That's how like the photos they want it to feel. And then other photos they want it to be like, feel free to hang out with your networking friends and learn more at the blank blank station, that we're offering. And so, I just try to think of like what's a win, and I think for couples as well, going back to weddings, it's like a win for them are photos that, at least for my couples, like feels authentic to them, feels authentic to their story, does them justice, but maybe with a little extra on there. um and then hopefully something that's preserved for forever, for their legacy. And like they want me to know, I hope that my photos show that I treat it like we only have one chance at this. And then it's not about me, like I used to shoot for me and used to be like, I want to make cool photos at every wedding. Um, and then once you stop or aren't able to make cool photos at every wedding, at least for me, that's where I hit burnout. But when my purpose changed to serving, like I honestly don't care what photos I come away with as long as they're good. Like I have my own visual
Mhm.
standard, but it's like I I think about photos of like how the couple will react to them, and I'm like, this will be sweet for them. They're gonna be really pumped about this, or like they didn't see this moment happening and we got it, and man, I'm really glad I was there. So that's a really long answer, but that's what I'm looking for usually when I'm shooting.
Dude, That is a really good mindset to be in when you're shooting weddings. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I had one second shooter for me one time who like, you know, good photographer, featured on Magmod. You know the guys, right? Like they're just off camera flashing every day. They got
Hmm.
flashes and Sony and AD 200s like hanging off their body. Like they're so cool and so talented. Um, but this couple, they had a body type similar to me. So if anybody listening, like I'm kind of a big guy, technically I'm obese if you're into the diet industry and the healthcare lobby. But yeah, sorry, very DC answer to that. But they had a body like me, right? And so, people are always kind of weird about how they look and right, and they want to look good in photos. So my first rule is like, I want to make people feel good. I want to do my best, right? Like I can't solve years of
Hmm.
trauma, or I can't solve what their mom has told them every day, and been like, you should, do this. But let's make them feel good. And this Magmod person, we'll call him Maggie. No, no, just kidding. This Magmod person, again, super killer photographer, and again he was just helping me out. And I think like people get the wrong impression from my work because sometimes it does look cool. Sometimes I do make work that looks kind of neat. um and I like
Hmm.
that, but it's like none of the photos were flattering of the couple that he shot, and I was like,
Yeah.
like this is such, like, listen, this looks so cool, like I have no idea what you're doing off camera flash wise. Like I barely use my off camera flash. uh this looks super cool, but she is gonna hate that double chin, and I'm so sorry, bro. And I'm like, I'm not trying to liquefy this, So it's just a different mindset, versus like him and how he sells to his clients. They know that that's his value. It's like, hey, I want to make art on every
Yeah.
photo, which I think is super cool, totally fine. But for me, it just didn't feel fulfilling to make photos that photographers were impressed by. Um, I wanted to make photos that like families were impressed by, and which is super weird, but it is what it is. It works.
I mean, it's not weird. It's how we should be as photographers. A client first mindset is how your business is going to be successful and how it's going to succeed. So
Yeah,
I
no,
love
totally.
it. It's refreshing to hear a photographer talk like that about their business and to know that that person is somebody who's successful enough they can hire me to shoot a conference for
Yeah. I mean, it's only 1 or 2 days or whatever. I don't know, but um, but what's funny is like I'll have second shooters come to me for it'll be their first time working with me. Um, and we just had one, I think end of April. And I told her, I was like, yeah, we'll pay you well. I like what I've seen from your stuff. Like, no pressure. Like, here's basically what I need, but the rest of the day, just like have fun, do your best. Um, and that's how I'll be for the conference. I'll be like, here's what I would hope for, but again, like again, it's like it's not. I try not to stress people out. I want them to be blossoming flowers, um,
them.
but I told her, I said, she's like, I'm really excited to learn from you, and I was like, cool, yeah, like ask me anything on the wedding day, like totally fine. I'm an open book, like. I will show you how I manage my money. I will show you the amounts. I will show you literally anything. Like I do not care. Like I'm an open book to second shooters, mentees, all that stuff. And but I said I will warn you, you're gonna watch me shoot and you'll be bored. You'll be like, this is the most boring wedding photographer I've ever seen in my life. And maybe it's lazy because I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to use my social skills to get the photos that I want. And and then I'll shoot whatever else we need to shoot, and it'll be chill. And every second photographer who shoots with me, they're always like, "This was so like less stressful than any wedding I've ever shot," and all that stuff, and kind of showing them that like the whole reason it can feel passive aggressive. Like I have this, a lot of people have this, like a wedding guide or a little book that you send couples after they
Hmm.
book, and I tell couples to look through it, and that like if they read everything, and they don't have to do everything in it, but I say if you heed this knowledge, uh, this is the best chance for you to have the photos that you've seen, or photos like what you've seen. So it's a very basic kind of thing. I was like, but obviously I'm a professional. I can work with whatever, even if we don't do any of this. But like there's two timelines in there for a reason, and
Hmm.
I'm the first one to even show them a timeline. The planner's not even talking about ceremony time, all that stuff. And so, most weddings, like, because we've set the intention and the expectation that, hey, here are a few timeline samples, like, we already know we built in enough time in those. Like, seldom are we stressed out. Like, um, and like racing to something else or moving around or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm just chill. And I don't know. So I have no idea where we were going with that, but I'm
No,
a
man,
very
I love
boring
it.
photographer.
That'll be the title of the podcast, The Boring Photographer.
That's right. That's right.
That'll bring
Then they'll think it's
everybody
like,
in to listen.
yeah, they'll think it's like a Elon Musk kind of thing, like the Boring
Oh,
Company.
double awesome. Yeah.
Throwing flames out.
Yeah. Yeah. Send that Dogecoin to the moon or
That's
tanking
right.
it when he goes on SNL. Either way
That,
you look at it.
that's right. I'm still up, so
Are you on Dogecoin then? Did you
I
invest?
I only have a tiny bit of Doge because I think that it is I'm not convicted in the technology, as I like to say.
Yeah.
I'm not convicted in the Doge because it's obviously a joke. But I also understand that the cool part of cryptocurrency is that it can be manipulated by the market, and it's a passion based volatility right now. So all that to say, I was like, well, I might as well try to get in. So yeah, I have a little bit. I have $100 worth. It's like a tip, and I was like, all right. I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm gonna buy something stupid, and she was like, oh, like a new hat, and I was like, thanks. And I was like, no, because I have like 12 hats now, but you get to your 30s and you don't want to do your hair anymore. So yeah, but yeah, I have
I'm
some Doge.
losing my hair in my 30s, so
Yeah, that's
yeah.
honestly like I'm just gonna start showing up to weddings like this or in like a cute beret, and be like, "What's up?" Like so. Yeah,
That's great. Do you want to help me answer some questions from the internet?
yeah, absolutely.
Let's do some Q&A. But, but Steve. Awesome. All right, the first one comes from Amanda from a random Facebook group, and Amanda asks,
Wait. Hold on.
Whoa.
This is important,
Yeah.
and we're doing this live. So sorry, Stephen. Is this
No.
photos that someone wanted to ask on the podcast, like kind of wedding or photo related, or did you just find some random questions from the internet?
These are just random questions from the internet.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Yeah. No. We do questions people ask. I think James Kelly had a question for me to ask, but it's been so long since I talked to him about having you on the podcast, I forgot what it was. He did tell me I needed to tell you that he says hi when I have you on the podcast. He was very adamant that I needed to say that.
Hi, James. I love you.
These are just random questions. So Amanda from a random Facebook group asked, my husband second shoots for me, but he doesn't do photography other than that. He's an accountant. A photographer in town keeps reaching out to hire my husband to second shoot for her. When I offer to second shoot, she always comes up with an excuse of how some other photographer got back with her that she's going to go with instead. Recently, my husband said yes just to see what was going on. Should I be worried that she's just trying to spend time with my husband?
I mean, I would say yes. But just playing devil's avocados, is there a chance that this husband has a natural look or a knack in his photos and or talent? Like effort beats talent every day, but talent is nice to look at sometimes, and maybe his work is good. But then again, I don't know how this creepy photographer found only his work. So, yeah, I think it's weird.
Maybe she could just tell looking at the photos. He's the better photographer of the two.
That's
of them.
true.
Maybe
Yeah, I'd be like, oh yeah, this has got to be the guy. Yeah, I would be worried if you're not interested in polyamory or other styles of mutual relationships. I'd probably I'd have some conversations or set some boundaries.
So Amanda did update her question after people asked on Facebook,
Oh.
and she said, "My husband and this photographer did used to date, and he second shot for her before they broke up, and then met me."
Oh my goodness.
Which doesn't really answer any questions, because it does make it a little bit more awkward. But then at the same time, it's like, but she is more familiar with his work, and they have a working relationship then. But still.
See, this goes against the don't be romantic about how you make your money, because I'm like, hey, I'd rather be I'd rather make a little less money and not be in the doghouse with my wife. Dudes, you know what I'm talking about, than risk it for a few extra $100 or something like that. So yeah, it's that's not worth it for me. Hard pass. Hard pass.
Maybe he shows up and I mean, he is an accountant by day and she's like, actually, there's not a shoot. I just really need help with my taxes and I didn't know how else to hire you because I don't
No.
know how to hire people normally.
Yeah, no. I think as a society, we've watched way too many we'll call them scientific videos about how these situations can go, and let's go with no. Let's go with please no. Again, avoid the doghouse at all costs. Even the
Scientific
rumor of
videos. That sounds like shows on the CW.
I don't know what to say there. That wasn't what I meant, but hopefully somebody somewhere knows what I meant. But the CW is great. Seventh Heaven, Smallville, totally fine. So,
I
listen.
like that you just pulled it out and you're like, I have a working knowledge of all the shows that were on the CW.
I watched a lot of TV, man. I got a body for watching TV, not for being on it. So
I love it. So, Lance from a random Facebook group asks, my wife and I have been struggling to book weddings since the pandemic hit. I've started delivering for DoorDash to help cover expenses. But if
yeah.
we don't start booking more soon, I'll need to find a real job. Since we haven't been booking, I've grown out my beard. My wife has, in the last few weeks, become fixated on this. She thinks the reason we aren't booking anymore is because of my beard. She wants me to shave it off. I don't want to. But if it's the difference between our business succeeding or failing, then I would consider it. What should I do?
Wow. One, is this in the podcast Facebook group, or what are these Facebook groups, man? Where
For scientific reasons for the podcast, I'm in, let's say safely, about 250 different photography podcasts or photography groups. So I just kind of scroll through my feed every once in a while, and if something pops that looks interesting, I save it. This one I saved about a year ago when I first asked you to come on the podcast because of
oh
your
my
brand and everything.
yeah, because of the whole bearded thing. Well, so I would say couple with their bearded issue, if you will, the bearded elephant in the room, if you will. Um, One might say that a playoff beard would be really cool and is good luck for in the sports realm. Um, I know many a men who took this opportunity to grow a pandemic beard to varying degrees of success. I do question if it's true, if the wife's inkling is true that they were only getting booked on his looks, honestly, that's a whole different issue. Um, well, like we're just gonna go here. We're just gonna go there. But like Ben Hartley,
Hmm.
uh, great. I think great photographer, super good guy. I learned a lot from him, years ago. Like
Hmm.
I'm glad he's finally getting credit that I feel like he deserves. Super good teacher, super knowledgeable, all this kind of stuff. But also, even if he wasn't, he's super good looking. So he could
Yeah.
just be like booking because he's hot, and the couples are like, this dude's eyes make me feel better, and I want to give him my money. So
Oh, let's talk about his impressive hair, though, too. His great hair. It's not just
uh,
the eyes, it's the whole package with Ben Hartley.
he's got good hair. I think too. He this is the Ben Hartley praise section of the podcast. His wife is a beautiful young lady. Their kids look happy. They're. But here's what I'll say. I think Ben, because of marketing, is now like leaning into the idea that he knows he's a tall glass of water, and
I have noticed in his Facebook group the number of photos with him shirtless has gone up.
yeah, I mean, if you go from 0 to 1, that's 100%,
Yes.
increase. So, yeah, ok, how much? What would I sell a lot of courses if I took off my shirt for photos? Now I'm thinking about it. Anyway, so all that to say, I would, yeah, I would shave the beard, and I would tell them to go into a few Facebook groups where there are free workshops about getting leads and bookings, because you unless you really like DoorDash, I would say being a DoorDash person is a real job, and treat it like a real job. People need delivery, and it's great. So yeah,
Have you been door dashing a lot since it existed? Not just since
order.
the pandemic hit?
I've been ordering. I haven't worked for
Yeah.
DoorDash.
Hmm.
And yeah, we'll just see. In healthy times, there are no food ordering apps on my phone. In unhealthy mental and physical times, there's like 7 or 8. And because, right, like your favorite restaurants all use a different one, and you're like, dang it. But it's also good because you hear bad stories about some of the other ones. So yes, I'm a big DoorDash fan, a big Chow Now fan is the app we have over here, and Toast. So yeah, those are my recommendations for food delivery apps.
We have a DoorDash and Uber Eats around here, and I've
Yeah.
never once used one of those apps to order anything. I've only ever
Oh,
used the shipped thing to have like groceries delivered. But every
okay.
time
Yeah.
it's like time to like get food delivered, I'm like, I could just drive out. Like
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
just do that, and so I
Well,
always end up just doing it.
Well, definitely, if you don't live, so we live in DC proper, and what I've
Mhm.
realized, and people talk about this, especially in New York, but and I didn't realize this, but this is almost every city is like, um, just a little bit more mental work for us to do basic things. So, like when I'm going to go drop off a package, it should just be like pull up into the parking lot, walk in, here you go. They scan it and then you leave, right? Like that's really,
Mhm.
but instead it's like, okay, like gotta go find parking, street parking only. Make sure you're not in the commercial zone, all this kind of stuff, and do a few rounds. And it's like this whole rigmarole. So getting food is the same thing. So like driving out to get
Mhm.
food where we're at is not as fun as it should be. So yeah, I that's one thing I miss about not living in the DC area. But the idea that we can get like cookies delivered any time of the day, we can get like vegan General Tso's chicken, which like I like regular General Tso's chicken, but let's just say you wanted vegan and wanted it to be really good, we could also get that at like midnight, so that's pretty cool.
See, all the
Pretty cool.
places around me that sell General Tso's chicken are closed at like 9 o'clock at night because Jen and I live out in like a more rural setting,
Okay,
close
okay.
to a city, but not that close.
That's good to know for when I'm in Indy, because like probably every day I'll be ordering food. So
Yeah, I mean, if you're downtown, they've got a lot more great stuff. It's just out here in Noblesville where I am, it's like there's nothing.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Any other
So
questions?
Tori from a random Facebook group says, my sister recently got married and hired a photographer. I am also a photographer. I had my camera at the wedding, but my sister was concerned her photographer would get mad if I was taking pictures during the day. So I took photos of my sister and some girls getting ready, but put my camera away when the photographer showed up. Well, the photographer lost all the photos, and my sister is demanding to see the photos I took of her reception and ceremony because the photographer mentioned me having a camera when they said they lost the photos. I tried telling her I put the camera away and didn't shoot, but she's convinced the photographer purposely deleted her photos because of me having a camera and is now asking me to give her the photos I took throughout the day or pay for her to have another wedding. What do I do?
These are insane situations. I want to hug consensually. I just want to hug these people. And just be like, what the frick is going on? Okay. Wow. So first, I would say that uh, you know, you're a sister first, hopefully.
Mm,
That's something I've learned. And like the two weddings I've been a groomsman in, you know, I was just a groomsman. And I didn't bring my camera. I behaved in front of the photographer, right? Like I wasn't like, hey, sweet lens, Charlie. I wasn't weird. Um, and because I think that's like we want to be distraction free for our family. We don't want to cause a ruckus, as you might say. Um, but I don't I don't know why this other photographer lost all the photos. Also, it's 2021. if you're shooting a camera that doesn't have two cards and those cards, like, what is happening here? Um, like if you lost, I'd agree with like I would believe losing half the photos or like, oh, I lost the ceremony and getting ready. More than I believe losing all. I'm like, all of them? Did you drop the camera in water uh at the end of the night, or something? Or got robbed. That's always a
Did you
situation.
not have an SD card in the camera at all? You were just
That's
like shooting the whole day.
pro tip. Put it on your camera. Don't make the camera shoot without a card in it, guys. Like, you gotta turn that video on. If I was a sister, I would obviously show receipts and I'd be like, here's my SD card, let me know. Like that's just how I roll. I'd be like, I'm so sorry, Barbara, because that's probably her name. And just be like, listen, we did not, I only shot getting ready. I'm so sorry. Let me know if I can help anything with the photographer. So yeah. And I'd be like, I'm not paying for another wedding. Yours truly, Tori.
I want to be clear about that instead of boundary up front, not paying
Yeah.
for another wedding.
Yeah. Happy
One less
to. Yeah, you could find a solution in there somewhere.
One last question from Grant from a random Facebook group. He booked his first corporate gig. It's to shoot a conference. The guy who booked him knew he hasn't done any like conference work before and asked if he could get a reduced price since Grant could use the photos for his portfolio going forward. Grant said sure. Well, he shows up to the conference and it is a BDSM conference and they take his phone and his SD cards away from him. They give him their SD cards to shoot on, and then at the end of the day, they take the SD cards back from him and give him his phone and his blank SD cards back. He said, the guy who did it, that they were sorry, but they didn't trust photographers after an incident they had the year before, where someone attending was found in a photo on the last photographer's website and they lost their job afterwards. So they're not taking any, they're not giving any leniency. So Grant wants to know if he can ask for more money since he gave them a deal based on being able to use the photos to market himself.
No. It's after the gig. It's over. Grant, my personal advice is just I probably wouldn't shoot there ever again. But also too, these are there's like 6 basic questions when a corporate client inquires with you. Is like, how quickly do you need these photos turned around? Is there a budget set for the project? If so, what is it? Will these be on location or in the studio? What type of licensing would you like? Would you like unlimited, forever, no questions asked, all that kind of stuff? And then, can I use these for our personal promotion and advertisement? And if they don't have good answers for those questions, they're not ready to book a photographer yet. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
sounds really gatekeepy. And obviously, like, don't be romantic about how you get your money, Grant. But, it's a, ask those 6 questions and that'll eliminate the a lot of BS, and sometimes helps the couple or the client because they're like, oh, our budget set was $5,000. You're like, okay, cool, like $5,000, great. But they're like, hey, you can't use any of the images. So yeah, I think this is such a funny thing though, because like we're gonna shoot this firefighters thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I shoot a lot for this like client. They do a bunch of these kind of trade shows and stuff like that. And like I've never shown any of the photos ever. I never want to, like, zero desire. Like, I think they're good. Like, it's cool. I shoot some cool stuff. Like there's one event they do, and it's like firefighter and EMS training. They have this really cool smoky backlit shot of a firefighter silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's probably the only photo I've ever shown and been like, yeah, this is what I'm shooting this week. But usually, and this is changing, thank God, but it's usually old white dudes in suits or polos shaking hands, and no one wants to see that. No one, no one on my Instagram is like, I'm dying to see it. Give it to me. So that's where we're at. So sorry, Grant. Don't ask for more money though after the gig. I think that's weird. You should always is just have like an if then clause in your contract. If you don't have a contract, get one, just like a buddy in Toy Story or Finding Nemo. So yeah.
Adam, thank you so much for joining me today, answering some questions and talking to me a little bit about your business and how you do things. Where can listeners of the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast, where can they find you and your podcasts online?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, if you're still here, you should probably go to therapy. But thank you for sticking with us this far. It really means a lot. It really means last year's been a rough year for you, and this is a light for you. So we appreciate that. Yeah, to go listen to our podcast, thebeardedtog.com. The TOG is the last part of that. It's just short for photographer. I kind of hate it, but it sticks, so that's what we're there with. And then if you want to come chat with me about anything we talked about on the show, or tell me I was an idiot and you thought this was stupid and that Steven should delete this episode, or you want to see some sweet firefighter pics, and not those kind of firefighter pics.
But what about if
You
they
can
just want to
DM
see
me on it.
some old white dudes in suits?
If you want to see some old white dudes in suits, the connect for that is on Instagram. So just DM me at Mason Photography. You'll see just a photo of my big head on Instagram, and come follow, say hi, laugh, and yeah, I'm always open to chat. And I hope that what we talked about today, even though we got weird at the end, resonated with you. So yeah, that's where you can find me. So Steve, thanks so much for having me on. I hope this didn't go too long either. Like I could talk for like 10 hours. Like we could do a massive podcast.
I mean, yes, that would be awesome, but I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Wedding Photo Hangover was edited this week by Steve Van Elk.